I knew it was going to be a bad night the moment table 12 walked in. 3 middle-aged men in expensive suits, already loud from pre-dinner drinks somewhere else, their laughter cutting through the elegant atmosphere of Stellar like a chainsaw through silk. Marco, our maitre d', seated them in my section with an apologetic look that told me he'd tried to give them to someone else. "I'm sorry," he whispered as he passed me near the kitchen. "They requested a booth, and yours was the only one available. It's fine." It wasn't fine, but what else was I supposed to say? I smoothed down my black vest, checked that my name tag was straight, and approached the table with my best professional smile. "Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Riley, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with something to drink?" The man closest to me, balding, red-faced, wearing a Rolex that probably cost more than my annual rent, looked me up and down with an expression I'd learned to recognize immediately. That moment when they're trying to figure me out, when their brain is processing something that doesn't fit their neat little categories. "Riley," he said my name like it was a punchline. "That a boy's name or a girl's name?" My smile didn't falter. Years of practice. "It's my name, sir. Now, about those drinks?" His friends laughed. That particular brand of cruel laughter that men like this always seem to share. The second man, younger with slicked back hair, leaned forward. "Come on, buddy. We're just asking. What are you really?" The words hit like they always did, a punch to the gut disguised as curiosity. But I kept my voice steady, professional. "I'm your server, and I'm happy to help you with anything from our menu. We have an excellent wine list if you're interested, or I can recommend a cocktail." "I bet you can recommend a cocktail," the third man muttered, and they all laughed again. I took their drink orders, 3 whiskeys, neat, top shelf, and walked back to the bar with my hands trembling. Marcus, our bartender, caught my eye and frowned. "Bad table? Just another Tuesday." I gave him the order and leaned against the bar for a moment, willing my heartbeat to slow down. Through the window into the dining room, I could see them still laughing, probably still talking about me. This was the part of the job no one warned you about when you transitioned. Not the legal paperwork or the hormone therapy or even the surgery. They didn't tell you about the constant low-grade harassment, the way people felt entitled to comment on your existence, to question your validity, while you were just trying to do your job and pay your rent. "Riley?" Chef Monica's voice came from the kitchen window. "You good?" "Yeah, I'm good." Another lie. But Monica had enough to worry about running the kitchen without dealing with my emotional breakdowns. I delivered the drinks to table 12 with steady hands. They'd moved on from discussing me to discussing their golf game, which was a relief. Maybe they'd just eat their steaks and leave me alone. I should have known better. The evening got progressively worse. Every time I approached the table, one of them had a comment. When I brought their appetizers, the bald one asked if I was pre-op or post-op, like that was an appropriate dinner conversation. When I delivered their entrees, the younger one made a joke about chicks with dicks that made the table next to them visibly uncomfortable. When I refilled their water glasses, the third one called me it while asking for more bread. By the time they ordered dessert, I was barely holding it together. I could feel other diners watching, some with sympathy, others with the same disgust the men at table 12 wore openly. I wanted to scream. I wanted to quit. I wanted to disappear. But I needed this job. Stellar paid better than anywhere else I'd worked, and the tips were good, when people weren't too busy being transphobic to remember to tip. I had student loans and rent and therapy bills, so I smiled and took their dessert orders and pretended their words didn't make me want to cry in the walk-in freezer. That's when she walked in. I noticed her immediately, even through my fog of humiliation and anger. She was impossible not to notice. Tall, probably in her early 50s, with silver gray hair cut in a sharp bob, and wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my car. She walked with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to question whether you belong somewhere. Marco seated her at table 7, right next to table 12. I watched as she settled in, pulled out her phone, and began scrolling through something with the focused attention of someone used to making important decisions quickly. "Riley," Marco appeared at my elbow. "Table 7 is yours too. And, please," he glanced meaningfully at table 12, who were currently laughing uproariously at something. "Try to give her excellent service. That's Catherine Webb." The name meant nothing to me, and my face must have shown it. "The tech CEO?" Marco looked stunned. "Webb Technologies? She's worth like $3 billion. "Oh," I straightened my vest again. "Right. Got it." I approached table 7 with the last remnants of my professional composure. "Good evening, ma'am." My name is Riley, and I'll be the house salad. No dressing on the side, grilled salmon, no butter, lemon wedges, sparkling water with lime. She didn't look up from her phone. And whatever wine pairs best with salmon. Surprise me. Excellent choice. I'll put that in right away. I was turning to leave when table 12 erupted in laughter again. The bald one was telling another joke. This one involving the tea slur, his voice loud enough to carry across half the restaurant. I felt my face flush with shame and anger. Catherine Webb's head snapped up. Her eyes, ice blue and suddenly very sharp, fixed on table 12, then moved to me, really looked at me, in a way that made me feel exposed and seen all at once. Is that table bothering you? Her voice was quiet but clear. I didn't know how to answer that. They're just customers. That's not what I asked. Something in her tone made me honest. Yes, they've been difficult. She set down her phone with deliberate care. Define difficult. Ma'am, I really shouldn't define difficult. So I told her. Not everything, but enough. The questions about my body, the slurs, the way they'd been treating me like entertainment for the past hour. With each word, her expression grew colder, more controlled. By the time I finished, she looked like she was carved from ice. I see. She stood up, smoothing her suit jacket. Wait here. Before I could stop her, she walked over to table 12. In heels, she was easily 6 feet tall, and she used every inch of it as she stood at the head of their table, looking down at them with an expression that could freeze nitrogen. Gentlemen, her voice could have cut glass. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. I'm Catherine Webb, CEO of Webb Technologies. The men suddenly looked less sure of themselves. The bald one sat up straighter. Ms. Webb, we're big fans of your work. I don't care. She cut him off. What I care about is that you've spent the last hour harassing your server, a young woman who is simply trying to do her job. Now wait a minute, the younger one started. I'm not finished. Her voice didn't rise, but somehow it got louder. The entire restaurant had gone quiet. That young woman's name is Riley. She is a professional who has shown remarkable patience with your disgusting behavior. And you will apologize to her. Right now. We don't have to. You're absolutely right. You don't have to. But if you don't, I will make it my personal mission to ensure that everyone in this city, everyone in your industry, knows exactly what kind of men you are. I will post about this on every social media platform I have. I will tell every tech company, every investor, every networking group. And given that I personally know your CEO, she nodded at the bald man, Jeff Morrison, I imagine that conversation will be particularly interesting. The man went pale. You know Jeff? We golf together, monthly. In fact, I'm meeting him for drinks next week. Should I mention your behavior tonight? The silence stretched. Then, slowly, all three men turned to face me. The apologies were grudging, mumbled, clearly forced. But they were apologies. Catherine Webb wasn't done. She turned to Marco, who was watching with wide eyes. I'd like to pay for their meal, and then I'd like you to ask them to leave. Ma'am! Marco looked torn between horror and delight. It's my restaurant. She pulled out a black credit card. I bought it last month through one of my holding companies. I haven't made the announcement yet, but consider this my first executive decision as owner. These men are no longer welcome here. The men from table 12 couldn't leave fast enough, practically tripping over each other in their rush to exit. The restaurant remained silent for another beat. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then the entire dining room erupted in applause. Catherine Webb ignored it all. She turned to me, her expression softening slightly. Riley, is it? Yes, ma'am. My voice came out shaky. I'm sorry that happened to you. No one should have to endure that kind of treatment, especially not at work. She glanced at her watch. Now, I believe I ordered dinner. I'd very much appreciate it if you'd continue to be my server for the evening. And going forward, when I dine here, which will be frequently, I'd like to request that you serve my table specifically. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. She smiled, a real smile this time that transformed her entire face. Excellent. Now, about that wine pairing, the rest of that night passed in a surreal blur. I served Catherine Webb her dinner with hands that trembled slightly, managing to keep my composure despite the fact that my mind was reeling. She ate efficiently, occasionally taking calls on her phone, and left a tip that was literally $300 on a $70 meal. See you next week, Riley, she said as she left, her voice warm. The moment the door closed behind her, The other servers mobbed me. Oh my God, Riley. Did that actually just happen? She bought the restaurant? Marco pulled me aside, his usually composed face excited. Riley, do you understand what just happened? Catherine Webb just publicly defended you. She's one of the most powerful women in tech, and she requested you specifically as her server. I know. I couldn't finish the sentence. My emotions were too scrambled. Relief, gratitude, embarrassment, disbelief, all tangled up together. Go home, Marco said gently. You've had a hell of a night. We'll cover your last tables. I didn't argue. I changed out of my work clothes in the employee bathroom, pulled on my hoodie and jeans, and stepped out into the San Francisco night. The air was cool and damp, carrying the smell of the ocean and exhaust fumes. I started walking, not ready to go back to my cramped studio apartment in the Tenderloin. My phone buzzed. A text from my roommate Jasmine. Girl, you're trending on Twitter. What the hell happened? I pulled up Twitter with shaking hands. Sure enough, someone at the restaurant had recorded part of Catherine Webb's confrontation with Table 12. The video was grainy, the audio not great, but you could clearly hear her defending me, clearly see the men slinking away. It had already been retweeted thousands of times. The comments were a mix of support and the usual transphobic garbage I'd learned to expect from the internet. But the support was overwhelming. People praising Catherine Webb, people sharing their own stories of workplace harassment, people asking about me and where I worked. A new tweet appeared from a verified account, and Catherine Webb. I clicked on it. Tonight, I witnessed unacceptable behavior toward a service worker. Riley, you handled yourself with grace and professionalism. To everyone in service industries, you deserve respect, dignity, and safety at work. No exceptions. Below it was a photo. Me, taken from across the restaurant, focused on my work. I barely recognized myself. In the photo, I looked composed, professional. I looked like someone who belonged there. The tweet already had 50,000 likes. I sat down on a bus stop bench and cried. Not sad tears exactly, but the kind of tears that come when you've been holding yourself together for so long that kindness shatters all your carefully constructed walls. A woman sat down next to me, keeping a respectful distance. You okay, honey? Yeah. I wiped my face. Just had a weird night. She smiled. This is San Francisco. Weird nights are our specialty. When I finally made it home, Jasmine was waiting up, perched on our lumpy couch with her laptop. She was a software engineer who worked from home, brilliant and perpetually dressed in pajamas. Okay, spill. Everything. She patted the couch next to her. So I told her the whole story, from Table 12's harassment to Catherine Webb's intervention. Jasmine listened, her eyes getting wider with each detail. Riley, do you understand what this means? Catherine Webb basically just gave you the most powerful endorsement possible. You're not just that trans waitress anymore. You're the waitress Catherine Webb specifically requested. It was just one night, Jazz. One night that's now been seen by millions of people. She turned her laptop to show me. The video had been picked up by news sites. BuzzFeed had already written an article. Tech CEO Catherine Webb stands up for trans server in viral video. Oh, God. I put my head in my hands. This is good, Riley. This is really good. Do you know how many people are going to come to Stellar now just hoping to see you? She was right. Over the next few days, the restaurant's reservation line was swamped. People specifically requested to sit in my section. Some were genuine allies who wanted to show support. Others were probably just celebrity chasers hoping to witness drama. A few were clearly transphobes hoping to harass me, but Marco had developed a sixth sense for those and found reasons to seat them elsewhere. My tips tripled. My Instagram, which had been a private account with 50 followers, suddenly had thousands of follow requests. News outlets reached out for interviews. A podcast wanted me to come on and tell my story. I said no to all of it. The attention was overwhelming, terrifying in its intensity. I'd spent years trying to blend in, trying to just be another woman doing her job. Now I was visible in a way that felt dangerously exposed. But Catherine Webb kept her promise. She came to Stellar every Tuesday evening, always requesting my section. She was an easy customer, decisive about her orders, polite, generous with tips. But she also talked to me, real conversations when the restaurant wasn't busy. How are you handling the attention? She asked during her third visit, sipping her sparkling water. Honestly, it's terrifying. I refilled her glass. I'm not used to being seen. I understand that more than you might think. She studied me with those sharp blue eyes. Being visible as a woman in tech, especially as a lesbian woman. I spent years trying to decide how much of myself to show. It's a constant calculation. I nearly dropped the water pitcher. You're a lesbian. Yes. Though I'm lucky that by the time I came out publicly, I was already rich enough that most people couldn't afford to discriminate against me. Her smile was wry. Money insulates you from a lot of consequences, but not all of them. Over the next few weeks, our conversations deepened. She told me about building her company from nothing, about the sexism and homophobia she'd faced, about the careful balance between being authentic and being professional. I told her about my transition, about losing my family, about the daily exhaustion of existing in a world that constantly questioned my right to exist. You remind me of myself at your age, she said one evening. Brilliant, resilient, and absolutely convinced you have to do everything alone. I have Jasmine, your roommate. Yes. Anyone else? I thought about it. Not really. I lost most of my friends when I transitioned. The ones who stayed. They meant well, but they didn't really understand. No support system, no mentors, just working yourself to exhaustion at a restaurant job. She leaned back. Riley, can I ask you something? What do you actually want to do? Not what you're doing to survive, but what you want. The question caught me off guard. No one had asked me that in years. I studied computer science in college. Before I dropped out, I wanted to be a software engineer. Why did you drop out? I started transitioning. My parents found out and cut me off. I couldn't afford tuition anymore, so I started working full-time. That was 6 years ago. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. What if I told you Web Technologies is hiring? That I have a development program specifically for people who didn't finish traditional degrees but have the skills? My heart jumped into my throat. I couldn't. Why not? Because you're only offering because you feel sorry for me. I'm offering because you're smart, resilient, and clearly have the aptitude. Her voice was firm. I've built a multi-billion-dollar company, Riley. I don't make business decisions based on pity. I make them based on potential. I don't know if I'm ready. That's fair. Think about it. She pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. My personal email. When you're ready, reach out. I stared at the card for a long time after she left. Catherine Webb's offer felt too good to be true, like a fairy tale that would dissolve the moment I reached for it. But the card was real, solid in my hand, her contact information embossed in elegant silver lettering. That night, I sat at my secondhand desk and opened up my old coding projects for the first time in years. The files were dated, the code probably outdated, but as I scrolled through lines of logic and algorithms, I felt something spark back to life inside me. Maybe I was ready to stop just surviving. Maybe it was time to actually live. 2 weeks passed before I worked up the nerve to email Catherine. I must have drafted that message 50 times, each version more awkward than the last. Finally, Jasmine grabbed my laptop and typed out a simple message while I protested. "Stop overthinking it," she said, hitting send before I could stop her. "You're just asking for more information. That's not committing to anything." Catherine responded within an hour. "Let's meet for coffee. Tomorrow at 10 a.m.? There's a cafe near WebTech's main office," which is how I found myself sitting in a sleek modern cafe in Soma, nursing an overpriced latte and trying not to fidget. Catherine arrived exactly on time, trading her usual elegant suit for dark jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably still cost more than my monthly rent. "Riley, thank you for reaching out." She ordered a black coffee and sat across from me. "I want to be clear about something from the start. This isn't charity. I'm not offering you a position because of what happened at the restaurant. I'm offering because I've done my research." "Research?" She pulled out an iPad and turned it to face me. On the screen was my old GitHub profile, projects I'd forgotten I'd even made public. "You built a pretty sophisticated task management app when you were 19. The code is elegant. The UI design is intuitive. You clearly understand both front-end and back-end development." I stared at the screen. I'd forgotten about that. "You also contributed to several open-source projects before you stopped coding. Your pull requests show creative problem-solving and clean code." She swiped to another page. "You're rusty, obviously. 6 years is a long time in tech, but the foundation is there. I don't have a degree. Neither did I when I started my company. I dropped out of Stanford to found Web Tech." She smiled. "The program I'm proposing is specifically designed for people with unconventional paths. You'd start with a 3-month intensive boot camp, paid. If you complete it successfully, you'd join one of our junior development teams." "Unpaid?" My voice came out higher than intended. 40,000 for the boot camp period. plus benefits. If you transition to a full-time junior developer role, the starting salary is $75,000. I nearly choked on my latte. I made $28,000 a year at Stellar before tips. That's more than double what I make now. It's competitive for the market. And Riley, I'm not going to lie. It'll be hard. You'll be working with developers who have traditional degrees, who haven't had 6-year gaps. You'll need to prove yourself constantly. Story of my life. The words came out more bitter than I intended. Catherine's expression softened. I imagine it is. But here's what I can promise. WebTech has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. We have strong LGBTQ+ employee resource groups, and anyone who harasses you will be immediately terminated. No exceptions. I built that culture deliberately. Why? The question burst out before I could stop it. Why does this matter so much to you? She was quiet for a moment, stirring her coffee. When I was starting my company, a male investor told me I'd never succeed because women weren't logical enough for tech. When I came out, I lost 3 major clients and had 2 board members try to force me out. I've spent 20 years building a company where people like us, people who don't fit the Silicon Valley stereotype, can thrive. She met my eyes. I'm not a hero, Riley. I'm just someone who got lucky and now has the resources to make things slightly less terrible for the next generation. I need to think about it. Of course. Take your time. She slid a folder across the table. Program details, benefits information, everything you'd need to know. The next bootcamp cohort starts in 4 weeks. 4 weeks. That was barely enough time to give Stellar proper notice, let alone mentally prepare for such a massive life change. That evening, I talked it through with Jasmine over cheap Chinese takeout on our couch. You have to do this, she said, jabbing her chopsticks at me for emphasis. Riley, this is exactly what you've always wanted. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? Then you fail, and you figure out plan B. But what if you don't fail? What if you're actually amazing at this? She squeezed my hand. You've been playing it safe for 6 years, working a job that pays your bills but doesn't challenge you. When was the last time you let yourself want something? She was right. I'd spent so long in survival mode that I'd forgotten how to dream. The idea of going back to coding, of building things, of using my brain for more than remembering table orders, it was terrifying and exhilarating at once. I emailed Catherine that night. I'm in. The next month was chaos. I gave Stellar 2 weeks' notice, and Marco threw me a going-away party that made me cry. The regular customers, the ones who'd been kind even before the incident with Table 12, all showed up to wish me well. Even Marcus the bartender, who I'd thought barely tolerated me, gave a speech about how proud he was. You're going to do amazing things, he said, his eyes suspiciously shiny. Just remember us little people when you're some fancy tech genius. Jasmine helped me prepare, running through coding exercises with me every night. The skills came back faster than I expected, muscle memory in my fingers as they flew across the keyboard. But 6 years was still a long gap, and modern frameworks had evolved significantly. The night before the bootcamp started, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through every possible disaster scenario. What if everyone else was smarter than me? What if I couldn't keep up? What if I'd made a terrible mistake? My phone buzzed at 2 a.m. A text from Catherine. Can't sleep either? First days are always nerve-wracking, even when you're the CEO. You've got this, Riley. Trust yourself. The Web Technologies office was a gleaming glass tower in the heart of Soma, the kind of building that screamed successful startup. I arrived 30 minutes early, clutching my laptop bag like a security blanket. The bootcamp cohort was 12 people, a diverse mix of backgrounds, ages, and experiences. There was Marcus, a former teacher looking for a career change. Priya, who'd been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years and was returning to the workforce. James, a veteran using his GI Bill benefits. And others, all of us unconventional, all of us nervous. Our instructor, a woman named Diana with purple hair and more piercings than I could count, immediately put us at ease. Welcome to WebTech's New Pathways program. If you're here, it means you've got potential, but your journey hasn't been traditional. That's fine. Neither was mine. She grinned. I was a high school dropout who taught myself coding while working at Starbucks. Now I'm a senior engineer. Traditional paths are overrated. The first week was overwhelming. We covered everything from basic algorithms to modern frameworks, Git workflows to agile development practices. My brain felt like it was constantly on fire, processing new information at a pace I hadn't experienced since college, but it was also exhilarating. Every problem I solved, every challenge I overcame, reminded me that I was good at this, that I'd always been good at this. I just let fear and exhaustion convince me otherwise. Catherine appeared in our classroom at the end of week 1, doing what Diana called CEO pop-ins. "How's everyone doing?" She looked around the room, her gaze landing on each of us in turn. "Tired, but good," Priya answered, and several of us nodded agreement. "That's what I like to hear." Catherine smiled. "I know this is intense. It's designed to be. But I want you all to remember why you're here. Not because you need to prove anything to me or anyone else, but because you have skills and potential that deserve to be developed." She paused. "Tech culture can be exclusionary. It can make you feel like you don't belong, but you do. Don't let anyone, including your own doubts, convince you otherwise." After she left, Marcus leaned over to me. "Did she really buy a restaurant just to fire the guys who harassed you?" "Apparently. That's the most badass thing I've ever heard." He shook his head in admiration. "No wonder everyone here worships her." By week 2, I'd settled into a rhythm. Wake up at 6 a.m., code for an hour before class, attend intensive sessions until 5 p.m., then work on assignments until midnight. It was exhausting, but for the first time in 6 years, I fell asleep feeling accomplished rather than just depleted. Jasmine noticed the change. "You're different," she said one evening, watching me debug some code at our kitchen table. "Lighter somehow." "I forgot how much I love this," I admitted. "Building things, solving problems." At the restaurant, every day was the same. I don't know. It feels like my brain is finally awake again. "Good, because you were getting boring, just coming home and collapsing every night." She grinned to show she was joking. "Also, someone from BuzzFeed emailed. They want to do a feature on Where Are They Now with you and Catherine." "Absolutely not." "That's what I figured. But your Instagram has like 50,000 followers now. You might want to post something occasionally." I'd been avoiding social media, uncomfortable with the attention. But that night, I posted a photo of my laptop surrounded by coding books, captioned simply, "Learning to build again." The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of comments from people sharing their own stories of career changes, of going back to school, of finding their way back to dreams they'd abandoned. One comment in particular stuck with me. "You gave me the courage to apply for that developer boot camp I'd been too scared to try. Thank you for being visible." Being visible. That's what Catherine had said too, that sometimes visibility was the most radical act. Maybe she was right. Week 6 of the boot camp brought our midterm project, build a functional web application from scratch in 5 days. We could choose any concept, but it had to demonstrate full-stack proficiency, clean code, and thoughtful UX design. 20% of our bootcamp cohort typically failed this project. I chose to build a scheduling app specifically designed for service industry workers, something that would let them swap shifts easily, track their hours, and communicate with managers without needing to download multiple apps. It was born from years of frustration with Stellar's clunky scheduling system. I worked obsessively, barely sleeping, surviving on coffee and the sandwiches Jasmine kept leaving on my desk. The code flowed like it hadn't in years, each function clicking into place with satisfying precision. But on day 3, disaster struck. My laptop crashed, taking with it hours of uncommitted work. I stared at the black screen in horror, feeling panic rise in my throat. No. I tried rebooting. Nothing. Tried safe mode. Nothing. Everything I'd built for the past 3 days was gone. I called Jasmine, barely holding back tears. "My laptop died. The project is due in 2 days. I don't have time to rebuild everything." "Did you push any of it to GitHub?" "Some of it, but not today's work. I was going to commit tonight." My voice cracked. "I'm going to fail. I'm going to have to go back to the restaurant and everyone will know I couldn't hack it." "Stop." Jasmine's voice was firm. "Listen to me. You have 2 options. Give up or figure this out. Which one is Riley Martinez going to choose?" I took a shaky breath. "Figure it out. That's my girl. Now, do you have access to your code from the bootcamp computers?" I did. I'd been doing some debugging at Web Tech earlier that day. I could recover maybe half my work from their systems. The rest I'd have to rebuild from memory in less than 48 hours. I called Diana, explaining the situation with my voice shaking from exhaustion and stress. "Okay," she said calmly. "Here's what we're going to do. Come into the office. You can work from here, use our backup systems. I'll be here too. I'm debugging something for the beta launch. You won't be alone." At midnight, I was sitting in Web Tech's sleek office, surrounded by monitors, frantically rewriting code. Diana sat nearby, occasionally offering suggestions when I got stuck, but mostly just being a steady presence. Around 2 a.m., the elevator dinged. Catherine Webb stepped out, still in her work clothes, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I heard we had someone pulling an all-nighter." She handed me a cup. "Thought you might need reinforcements." "Catherine, Ms. Webb, you didn't have to." "I know. I wanted to." She pulled up a chair. "Diana told me what happened. Technology failures are the worst because they feel so random and unfair. I should have committed my work more frequently. It's my own fault. Maybe. Or maybe you got so absorbed in the flow of building something that you forgot the housekeeping. That's actually a good sign. Means you were in the zone." She sipped her coffee. "When I was building the first version of our flagship product, I lost 2 weeks of work to a corrupted hard drive. I cried for an hour, then rebuilt it in 3 days. It ended up better than the original." "Really?" "Really. Sometimes the disaster forces you to see the flaws in your first attempt, gives you a chance to fix them." She stood up. "I won't distract you further. But Riley, you've got this. I've seen your code. It's good. Trust yourself." She left, and I turned back to my monitors. My hands were steadier now. I rebuilt the authentication system, improved the data models, redesigned the UI to be more intuitive. Catherine was right. Having to recreate everything from memory meant I was making better architectural decisions, not just copying what I'd done before. 46 hours later, exhausted and running on fumes, I submitted my project with 15 minutes to spare. Then I went home and slept for 14 hours straight. The results came back a week later. Diana pulled me aside after class, her expression unreadable. "Riley, we need to talk about your midterm project." My heart sank. I'd failed. All that work, all that effort, and I'd failed anyway. "Your scheduling app." Diana pulled up my code on her laptop. "It's really impressive. The architecture is clean, the UX is intuitive, and you even included features I wouldn't have thought to add, like the automatic coverage finder for sick days." She looked up at me. "You got the highest score in the cohort." I stared at her. "What?" "Highest score. By a significant margin." She grinned. "The disaster actually improved your work. Your code is more maintainable. Your logic is clearer. Whatever you did in those final 2 days, it worked." I wanted to cry with relief. I thought I'd failed. Not even close. In fact, we want to develop this into an actual product. Several team members in our hospitality division saw the demo and are interested in pitching it to clients. She pulled out some paperwork. "This would be separate from the boot camp. You'd get a development contract and a percentage of any revenue. Interested? Are you serious?" "Completely. Welcome to Tech, Riley. This is how good ideas become real products." That weekend, Catherine invited the entire boot camp cohort to her house in Pacific Heights for a celebration. Her home was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay, modern art on every wall, a kitchen that would make a professional chef weep with envy. "Make yourselves comfortable," she said, gesturing to the spacious living room. "Food and drinks are in the kitchen. Consider this your reward for surviving midterms." I found myself on the terrace, looking out at the Golden Gate Bridge glowing red in the sunset. Catherine joined me, carrying 2 glasses of wine. "Beautiful, isn't it?" She handed me a glass. "I bought this place 10 years ago. It was the first thing I bought after my company went public. My way of proving to myself that I'd actually made it. Do you ever feel like it's not real? Like you're going to wake up and find out it was all a dream? Every day." She laughed. "Imposter syndrome doesn't care how successful you get. I still walk into board meetings wondering if someone's going to realize I'm just making it up as I go along. But you built all this. With a lot of help, a lot of luck, and a lot of people giving me chances I wasn't sure I deserved." She turned to face me. "That's why I started the New Pathways program, because I remember what it felt like to be told I didn't belong, to have people doubt me because I didn't fit their expectations. Being a lesbian in tech, being a lesbian, being a woman, being someone who didn't come from money or privilege." She sipped her wine. "Being someone who spent years hiding parts of herself because visibility felt too dangerous. Is that why you came out publicly? To make it safer for others?" "Partly, but mostly because I was tired of lying. Tired of bringing friends to company events instead of my girlfriend. Tired of monitoring every word I said." She smiled. "It was terrifying. I thought I'd lose everything. But what I actually lost were the people who didn't deserve to be in my life anyway." We stood in comfortable silence for a moment. watching the sun sink toward the horizon. "Riley, can I ask you something personal?" Catherine's tone shifted, became more serious. "What happened with your family? You mentioned losing them when you transitioned." The question hurt, even after all these years. "My parents are very religious, conservative. When I told them I was trans, my dad said I was choosing sin over family. My mom said I'd always be their son, no matter what I did to my body." I swallowed hard. They gave me a week to come to my senses. When I didn't, they cut me off. Financially, emotionally, everything. My sister tried to keep in touch for a while, but eventually she stopped responding to my messages. I'm sorry, there are no words for how unfair that is. The worst part is sometimes I still miss them. I miss my mom's terrible cooking and my dad's bad jokes. I miss having people who knew me before. I wiped my eyes. How pathetic is that? Missing people who rejected me. It's not pathetic. It's human. Catherine's voice was gentle. Chosen family is real and important, but that doesn't erase the grief of losing your family of origin. You're allowed to mourn that loss. Did you? Lost my parents too, actually. Different reason. They died in a car accident when I was 30. But before that, coming out to them was the scariest thing I'd ever done. She smiled sadly. They surprised me. They were amazing about it. Loving, accepting, everything I'd hoped for. I was one of the lucky ones. I'm glad you had that. Me too. And Riley, I want you to know. You have people now. Diana thinks you're brilliant. Your cohort adores you. Jasmine clearly loves you. And She paused. I care about your success, yes. But more than that, I care about you. As a person. You remind me so much of my younger self, and I want better for you than what I had. The words cracked something open in my chest. Thank you. For all of this. For standing up for me that night. For the boot camp. For believing I could do this when I didn't believe it myself. Thank yourself. You did the work. I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it. Inside, the party was getting louder. Someone had put music on, and I could hear laughter and conversation flowing freely. My cohort. My people now, I realized. People who understood unconventional paths and second chances. Come on, Catherine said, heading toward the door. Let's go celebrate your success. God knows you've earned it. That night, surrounded by people who saw me and accepted me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, genuine hope for the future. Not just survival, but the possibility of actually thriving. The final 6 weeks of the boot camp were brutal. We moved from theory to practice, working on real client projects under the supervision of senior developers. My team was assigned to build a customer portal for a boutique hotel chain, reservation management, loyalty programs, personalized recommendations. Our team lead was a senior developer named Marcus Chen, who had a reputation for being both brilliant and demanding. In our first meeting, he looked at our team, me, Priya, and a recent college graduate named Tyler, and said bluntly, 2 of you will probably get hired full-time after this. 1 won't. Make sure you're not the one. The pressure was intense. We worked 12-hour days, debugging code late into the night, presenting progress updates that Marcus would tear apart with surgical precision. He wasn't cruel, exactly, but he was relentlessly exacting. This architecture won't scale, he'd say, pointing at Tyler's database design. Rebuild it. The UI is clunky. Users won't intuitively understand this flow, he'd tell Priya. Redesign it. To me, he was equally critical, but in different ways. Your code is good, Riley. Technically solid, but you're playing it safe. You're building exactly what the client asked for, nothing more. Where's the innovation? It stung because he was right. I'd been so focused on proving I belonged, on showing I could meet expectations, that I'd forgotten to exceed them. That weekend, I met Catherine for coffee, something that had become a regular occurrence. She'd somehow become my mentor, my friend, and my biggest advocate all at once. Marcus is pushing you because he sees your potential, she said when I complained about his feedback. The safe developers, the ones who just check boxes, they're replaceable. The ones who take risks, who push boundaries, those are the ones who become senior engineers. But what if I take risks and fail? Then you fail and try again. Riley, you've spent years playing it safe because you had to. You were in survival mode, but you're not in survival mode anymore. You have resources, support, a safety net. It's time to actually reach for what you want instead of just trying not to fall. Her words echoed in my head as I stared at the hotel portal code that night. What would innovation look like here? What could we build that went beyond the basic requirements? I started experimenting, added a feature that used machine learning to predict what amenities guests might want based on their booking history, designed a chatbot that could handle common customer service queries, built-in accessibility features that most hotel sites ignored, screen reader optimization, keyboard navigation, high contrast modes. By Monday, I had a prototype that was significantly more complex than what we'd been assigned to build. Marcus studied it in silence for a long moment. I held my breath. "This is good," he finally said. "Really good. The ML predictions might be too ambitious for the timeline, but the accessibility features, those should be standard. And the chatbot integration is clever." He looked up at me. "This is what I've been waiting to see from you. Initiative, vision. Not just competence, but creativity." Over the next few weeks, our team's project became one of the boot camp's standout successes. The hotel chain was so impressed they expanded the contract, requesting additional features. All three of us were offered full-time positions. Me and Priya as junior developers, Tyler as a junior UX designer. But success brought a new challenge: visibility. WebTech's marketing department wanted to feature the new Pathways program in their recruiting campaign. They wanted to showcase diverse success stories. They wanted to interview me. "Absolutely not," I told Diana when she broached the subject. "I'm not going to be the token trans employee in some corporate feel-good story. That's not what this is." Diana pulled up the marketing materials. "Look, they're featuring the entire cohort. Marcus and his career change from teaching. Priya returning to work after being a stay-at-home parent. Your story is one of many, but I'll be the one people focus on. The trans woman who got hired after going viral. It'll be inspirational disability porn, but for trans people. So tell them that. Tell them you'll only participate if they handle it respectfully. You have leverage here, Riley. Use it." I talked it over with Catherine that evening. We were in her office. I'd gotten comfortable enough to visit WebTech outside of boot camp hours, and Catherine often worked late. "I understand your hesitation," she said, leaning back in her expensive office chair. "Being visible as a trans person means constant scrutiny. Every mistake gets magnified. Every success gets questioned." "Exactly. So why would I voluntarily sign up for more of that? Because visibility also means representation. It means some trans kid in Kentucky who's terrified about their future might see your story and realize they have options, that tech careers are possible, that life can get better." She paused. "You don't owe anyone your story, Riley. But I'll tell you this. When I came out publicly, I got hate mail, death threats, lost business. But I also got letters from young women in tech who said seeing a successful lesbian CEO gave them hope. That made it worth it. I'm not you. I'm not a billionaire CEO who can weather any storm. Not yet. But you're building towards something. And part of building a career in tech, especially for people like us, is deciding how much we're willing to be visible. There's no right answer, only what you can live with." I spent days agonizing over the decision. Finally, I agreed to participate, but with conditions. I'd review the content before publication. I'd have final approval on photos. And they couldn't reduce my story to just trans woman overcomes adversity. They needed to include my actual skills and accomplishments. The marketing team agreed. The interview was thorough but respectful, focusing on my coding journey, my midterm project, my future goals. The photographer captured me at my desk, surrounded by monitors and code, looking professional and competent. When the campaign launched, the response was overwhelming. My LinkedIn was flooded with messages, some supportive, some from recruiters, some from other trans people in tech thanking me for being visible. But there was also hate. Transphobic comments on social media, anonymous emails telling me I was a man pretending to be a woman, even a few voicemails at WebTech threatening violence. Security took the threat seriously, but they still shook me. One evening, sitting in my apartment paralyzed by fear and regret, Catherine called. "I saw some of the comments," she said without preamble. "How are you holding up? I should never have agreed to this. I've made myself a target." "You were already a target the moment that video went viral. The difference now is you're controlling your own narrative instead of letting others define you." Her voice softened. "Riley, I'm not going to tell you the hate doesn't matter. It does. It's scary and exhausting and unfair. But don't let it erase all the good that came from this, too." She was right. For every hateful message, there were 10 supportive ones. A teenager in Ohio who said seeing my story gave them courage to come out. A woman in her 40s considering a career change who applied to the next bootcamp cohort because of my interview. A non-binary developer at another tech company who said it helped them feel less alone. Visibility had costs, but it also had value. The final week of bootcamp culminated in presentations to WebTech's executive team. Each of us had to present our capstone project and make the case for why we deserved a full-time position. I was terrified. My imposter syndrome was screaming that I didn't belong here, that I was about to be exposed as a fraud in front of people who actually knew what they were doing. But when I stood up to present my scheduling app, now significantly expanded with new features, something shifted. I looked at the code I'd built, the problem I'd solved, the users I'd designed for. This was good work. I'd created something valuable. My presentation was confident, technical, grounded in real-world applications. When I finished, Catherine, who was sitting in the back of the room, gave me a small nod of approval. Marcus Chen, my demanding team lead, raised his hand. Question: what's your 5-year plan? Where do you see yourself in this company? I took a breath. Senior developer, leading my own team. I want to specialize in applications for underserved communities, service workers, hourly employees, people whose needs aren't being met by current tech solutions. And eventually, I want to mentor other developers coming from non-traditional backgrounds. Ambitious. Marcus almost smiled. I like it. Welcome to WebTech. 6 months into my full-time position as a junior developer, I sat in WebTech's cafeteria with Priya, both of us exhausted from a week of debugging a particularly stubborn production issue. Remember when we thought the bootcamp was hard? Priya laughed, poking at her salad. That was a vacation compared to actual tech work. At least now we get paid well for the suffering. I checked my phone and saw a notification from my bank. My student loan payment had cleared. For the first time in 6 years, I was actually making progress on paying them off, instead of just treading water. My life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined a year ago. I'd moved out of the cramped studio I'd shared with Jasmine into a 1-bedroom apartment in Oakland with actual closet space and a kitchen that fit more than one person. I'd bought a new laptop that didn't crash constantly. I'd even started therapy again, finally able to afford the co-pays. But the biggest change was internal. I no longer felt like I was just surviving. I was building something. A career, a future, a life I actually wanted to live. Riley Martinez? A voice interrupted my thoughts. I looked up to see Marcus Chen standing at our table. Got a minute? My stomach dropped. In tech, got a minute from your supervisor usually meant either something amazing or something terrible, and you never knew which until they started talking. I followed him to a conference room where Catherine Webb was already waiting. Definitely something big. Sit, Catherine said, gesturing to a chair. We have a proposition for you. Marcus pulled up a presentation on the screen. Your scheduling app has been performing better than we anticipated. 3 hotel chains are using it. 2 restaurant groups have expressed interest, and we're getting inquiries from hospitals about adapting it for nursing schedules. That's great, I said cautiously. We want to spin it off into its own product line, Catherine said. With you as the technical lead, you'd have a small team, a real budget, and equity in the product. It's a significant promotion. More responsibility, more pressure, but also more autonomy and much better compensation. I stared at them. I've been a junior developer for 6 months. I'm not qualified to lead a product. You built the product, Marcus pointed out. You understand the users because you were one of them. You know the pain points better than anyone else on the team. But I'll mess up. I'll make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, Catherine said. The question is whether you're willing to learn from them. Riley, I wouldn't be offering this if I didn't think you could handle it. But I also won't force you. If you want to stay in your current role, that's fine. This opportunity will still be here when you're ready. I thought about the scared 17-year-old on the bridge, convinced she had no future. I thought about the exhausted waitress being harassed by customers, certain she deserved nothing better. I thought about every version of myself that had been told she was too much or not enough, too visible or not visible enough, too ambitious or not ambitious enough. I'll do it, I heard myself say. I'll probably fail spectacularly, but I'll do it. Catherine smiled. That's the spirit. Welcome to product leadership, Riley. Try not to panic too much. The next few months were chaotic. Building a team meant interviewing candidates, making hiring decisions, setting technical direction. I'd gone from writing code in isolation to leading 4 other developers, managing client relationships, and presenting to executives. I failed constantly, Made bad architectural decisions that had to be reversed. Hired someone who turned out to be a terrible culture fit. Missed deadlines because I'd underestimated the complexity of new features. But I also succeeded. Shipped updates that users loved. Built a team culture based on psychological safety and continuous learning. Grew the product from 3 clients to 15 in 6 months. Catherine checked in regularly, sometimes offering advice, more often just listening as I worked through problems out loud. "You're doing better than you think," she said during one of our coffee meetings. "Most new leads take a year to find their footing. You did it in 3 months. It still feels like I'm making everything up as I go. That's because you are. That's what leadership is. Making decisions with incomplete information and hoping you're right more often than you're wrong." She stirred her coffee. "Riley, can I tell you something? When I started web tech, I had no idea what I was doing. I learned everything through trial and error. The only difference between me and people who failed is that I was too stubborn to give up, and too rich to face consequences." She laughed. "That too. Money definitely provides a safety net, but stubbornness? That's something you have in abundance." One evening, working late at the office, I got an unexpected email. The subject line read, "From your sister." My hands shook as I opened it. "Riley, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I don't blame you for that. I was a coward when you needed family most. Mom showed me the article about you in TechCrunch, about your app and your job at Web Technologies. I wanted you to know I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you, even when I was too scared to say it. I'm sorry I stopped responding to your messages. I'm sorry I chose them over you. I was wrong, and I've spent years regretting it. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm here if you ever want to talk. My number is still the same. Love, Emma." I read the email 3 times, emotions cascading through me. Anger, grief, hope, fear. Emma had been my best friend growing up. Losing her had hurt almost more than losing my parents, because I'd believed she would be different. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I called Catherine. "Family reached out," I said when she answered. "My sister," after 6 years of silence. "And how do you feel about that?" "I don't know. Angry, relieved, terrified." I laughed without humor. "All of the above? That's reasonable. They hurt you deeply. You're allowed to have complicated feelings about reconnecting." She paused. "Do you want to respond?" "Part of me does. But what if she hurts me again? What if she's only reaching out because I'm successful now, not because she actually wants a relationship? Those are fair questions. Only you can decide if the risk is worth it." Catherine's voice was gentle. "But Riley, you've spent the last year taking risks. Starting the boot camp was a risk. Accepting the promotion was a risk. Each time you've proven you can handle difficult things. Whatever you decide about your sister, you'll handle that too." I sat with the email for a week before responding. When I finally did, I kept it simple. "Emma, thank you for reaching out. I'm not ready for a full relationship yet, but I'm willing to talk. Coffee sometime? Riley." We met at a cafe in Berkeley 2 weeks later. Emma arrived early, nervously stirring her latte when I walked in. She looked older, lines around her eyes, gray streaks in her hair she'd been too young to have 6 years ago. "Riley," she stood awkwardly. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't." I sat across from her, my defenses still high. "Why now, Emma? Why after 6 years?" "Because I've been a coward and I'm tired of it." Tears welled in her eyes. "When you came out, Mom and Dad were so angry. They said awful things. And I was scared that if I supported you, they'd cut me off too. So I chose them. I chose their approval over you. And what's different now? I had kids. 2 daughters. And I keep thinking, what if one of them is trans? What if one of them is gay? Would I do to them what our parents did to you?" She wiped her eyes. "I can't. I won't. And that means I can't keep pretending what happened to you was okay." We talked for 3 hours. She apologized repeatedly, and I told her honestly that I didn't know if I could forgive her yet. She accepted that, said she'd wait as long as it took. She told me about her daughters, 6 and 4, and how she wanted them to know their aunt. "I've told them about you," she admitted. "Not everything, but the important parts. That you're brilliant and brave, and you build apps that help people. That Aunt Riley is someone to admire." The words cracked something open in my chest. "You told them about me?" "Of course. You're family, Riley. You've always been family. I was just too scared to act like it." I didn't promise to be part of their lives immediately, but I agreed to try, to take it slowly, to see if trust could be rebuilt from ashes. As I left the cafe, I texted Catherine. Had coffee with Emma. It was hard but good. Thank you for pushing me to take the risk. Her response came immediately. Proud of you. Want to celebrate? Dinner this weekend? That weekend, Catherine took me to an expensive restaurant in Nob Hill. Not stellar, which had been sold to new owners months ago, but somewhere equally elegant. Over wine and perfectly cooked steaks, she told me about WebTech's expansion plans, about the new products in development, about her vision for the company's future. I want you to know something, she said over dessert. When I stood up for you that night at Stellar, I did it because it was the right thing to do. But what's happened since? Your growth, your success, your courage, that's all you. I opened a door, but you walked through it and then ran. I wouldn't have run without your support. Maybe, but lots of people have support and still give up. You didn't. You kept pushing, kept learning, kept taking risks. She smiled. I told you a year ago that you reminded me of my younger self. But honestly, you're braver than I was. You're building something while being fully visible as a trans woman. I had the luxury of hiding my identity until I had power and money to protect me. You don't have that option, and you're succeeding anyway. It doesn't always feel like success. Sometimes it feels like barely hanging on. That's what success looks like in real time. It's only in retrospect that it looks graceful. She raised her glass, to barely hanging on. And to the future you're building. 6 months later, I stood on stage at a tech conference in Austin, giving a talk about building products for underserved communities. The room was packed, hundreds of developers, designers, and product managers listening as I explained the principles behind my scheduling app. The key is remembering that users aren't abstract personas, I said, clicking to a slide showing real restaurant workers. They're real people with real problems. If you've never worked hourly, never struggled to swap shifts, never had to choose between calling in sick and paying rent, then you need to talk to people who have. Build with them, not for them. After the talk, people swarmed me with questions. Business cards piled up. LinkedIn requests flooded my phone. A recruiter from Google tried to poach me with an offer that would have doubled my already generous salary. I turned her down. WebTech was my home now. Catherine had given me a chance when no one else would have, and I wasn't ready to leave. That evening, I video called Jasmine from my hotel room. She was in her own apartment now. We'd remained close even after I'd moved out, talking almost daily. How'd it go? She asked, her face filling my screen. Terrifying and amazing. I can't believe people actually wanted to hear what I had to say. Girl, you're kind of a big deal now. You need to accept that. She grinned. Remember when you were just a sad waitress eating cereal for dinner? I wasn't that sad. You were extremely sad. But look at you now. Giving conference talks, leading a product team, actually having savings. She paused. I'm really proud of you, Riley. You know that, right? Yeah, I know. My voice got thick. Thank you for sticking with me through all of it. For being there when I had nothing. That's what family does. And you're my family, period. After we hung up, I sat on the hotel bed and thought about the word family. Emma and I had been rebuilding our relationship slowly. Coffee dates, phone calls, carefully supervised meetings with her daughters who called me Aunt Riley and thought I was cool because I worked with computers. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Jasmine was family. Catherine had become family. Diana, Marcus, my team at WebTech, they were family too. I'd built a chosen family from nothing, piece by piece, relationship by relationship. The next morning, flying back to San Francisco, I drafted an email to the New Pathways program coordinators. I wanted to mentor the next bootcamp cohort, to be for someone else what Catherine and Diana had been for me. I know what it's like to feel like you don't belong in tech, I wrote. Like your non-traditional background makes you less qualified. I want to help others push through that fear and build careers they're proud of. The response came within hours. We'd love to have you. Welcome to the mentorship team. 1 year after starting at WebTech, Catherine invited me to her office for what she called a serious conversation. I walked in nervously, trying to remember if I'd messed up anything recently. She was standing by her window, looking out at the San Francisco skyline. When she turned, she was smiling. Your app just hit 1 million users, she said. Hospital systems, restaurants, retail chains, everyone wants it. We're projecting 50 million in revenue this year. I sat down heavily. That's impossible. Very possible, apparently. You built something people genuinely need. She handed me a folder. This is your new compensation package. reflecting your role as a senior product lead and your equity stake in the product. It's a significant increase. I opened the folder and nearly fainted. The salary was more than double what I'd been making. The equity stake would be worth millions if the product continued growing. Catherine, I can't. You can and you will. You earned this, Riley. Every penny. She sat across from me. I have another proposition. We're creating a new division focused on technology for underserved communities. I want you to lead it. Full VP title, significant budget, complete autonomy to build products that matter. VP? But I'm 29. I've been in tech for barely 2 years, and in that time you've built a 1 million user product, led a successful team, and become a voice for inclusive design. Age and traditional experience don't matter as much as results and vision. You have both. I thought about the 17-year-old on the bridge, certain she had no future. I thought about the waitress being harassed, certain she deserved nothing better. I thought about every version of myself who'd been told she was wrong, broken, not enough. Yes, I said, I'll do it. That night, I stood on my apartment balcony, looking out at the Oakland lights and San Francisco Bay beyond. My phone rang. Catherine, I forgot to tell you something, she said. Tomorrow's the anniversary of that night at Stellar. 1 year since I stood up for you. Has it really only been a year? It feels like a lifetime. That's because you've lived a lifetime's worth of growth in 12 months. She paused. Riley, I want you to know how proud I am of you. Not just for your professional success, but for your courage. You've been visible and vulnerable in a world that punishes both. That takes strength most people don't have. I learned from the best. My voice cracked slightly. Thank you, Catherine, for everything, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. You're very welcome. Now get some rest. Tomorrow you start planning your new division. And Riley, dream big. You've earned it. After we hung up, I pulled out my laptop and opened a new document. VP Division Proposal, Technology for Underserved Communities. But before I started writing, I opened my old journal, the one I'd kept sporadically since I was 17. I flipped to the last entry, written the night before I'd started the boot camp. I'm terrified, but maybe being terrified means I'm actually trying. Maybe it means I've stopped just surviving and started living. Below it, I wrote a new entry. 1 year later. I'm still terrified most days, but I'm also a VP at Web Technologies. I lead a team. I build products that help people. I have chosen family who loves me. I'm reconnecting with my sister. I'm visible and successful, and openly trans in an industry that doesn't always welcome people like me. That 17-year-old on the bridge couldn't have imagined this life. She thought she had no future. She was wrong. I was wrong. The future isn't perfect. I still face discrimination. I still have bad days. I still struggle with imposter syndrome and fear and doubt. But I also have hope. Real, tangible hope for what comes next. I'm Riley Martinez. I'm 29 years old. I'm a senior product leader at a major tech company. I'm a trans woman who refused to stay invisible. I'm a mentor to the next generation of non-traditional developers. And I'm just getting started. I closed the laptop and looked out at the city lights, thinking about Catherine Webb and her billionaire intervention that had changed everything. Thinking about visibility and risk and courage. Thinking about how sometimes the worst moments of our lives create the possibility for the best ones. Tomorrow, I'd start building my new division. I'd mentor new boot camp students. I'd continue growing my product. I'd have coffee with my sister and meet my nieces. But tonight, I just stood on my balcony and marveled at the fact that I was here at all, that I'd survived when I wasn't sure I would, that I'd built a life worth living when I couldn't imagine one was possible. The woman who had stood up for me at Stellar had given me more than just that one moment. She'd given me permission to believe I deserved better, to reach for more, to be visible and ambitious and unapologetically myself. And I'd taken that permission and run with it. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Emma. The girls want to know if Aunt Riley can come to Sophie's birthday party next month. No pressure, but they'd love to see you. I typed back, I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it. Family, career, future, hope. I had all of it now, built piece by piece from the wreckage of who I used to be. And tomorrow, I'd keep building.